Hello, everyone. Hello, and welcome or welcome back. So, when it comes to dating, we all have stories of excitement and disappointment, steep highs and plummeting lows. I certainly have had them, and many of us have experienced both of these emotions on loop in the situationships in which we find ourselves. So, have you ever felt this way? That's one good question I'm going to ask you because I think that many of us will realize that no, we are not alone, even when we think that nobody else could understand the quality of the high or the quality of the low for that matter. It's been a long time since I myself was dating, but I remember these ups and downs so well. If I start to tell a story, I mean, recently I was playing Where Should We Begin, and I got the card, the worst date you've ever been on. And I was telling it, but it wasn't just like I was remembering it, I was literally reliving it. So the stories continue to live inside of us, with intense viscerality. And, I can relate to it when people tell me about what it means to be in a new relationship, and I remember particularly one guy that just came up to me when I was trying to think, where are the slings and arrows of my dating experiences. And a month after we were together at the university, he just came to me and told me that he didn't want to continue. Now, at the time, we still broke up with people in person. They had to come and tell us, but still, I was blindsided. And for weeks, I carried a small torch of hope that I would reconcile, that we would find each other, and that he would realize that he had made the biggest mistake, of course. Today, I'd probably be stalking him on social media. Back then, I went to all the places where we used to go together in person, and I kept looking for him everywhere, but he was nowhere to be found. He had vanished. And not only did he disappear, but he took with him our shared routines and our shared rituals and a good chunk of my self worth. And one of the hardest parts was how impossible it felt to reconcile how connected we had been at the beginning with how swiftly that connection had disappeared. Asking you again, can you relate to questioning your self worth? I imagine so. I do, because you're in the right place at this moment. Today, we're going to be talking about clicking and unclicking in early stage relationships and the simple strategies for rebuilding your self esteem, for regaining hope, and for daring to love again, to open yourself up to the possibility, because that's all we can do. We can't be sure, but we can have a different encounter with the unknown. But first, a bit of housekeeping. So, hello, everyone, and all of you who have just joined at this moment. And thanks for joining me for Letters from Esther Live, my monthly workshop series to help you reflect, act, and develop greater confidence and relational intelligence in all of your relationships. This is a monthly series that happens on YouTube and Facebook Live. And for more Letters from Esther, visit estherperel.com/blog. I invite you to join me every month here on YouTube or on Facebook to discuss the newsletter live. So you read it, and then we come together and we discuss it. We get to ask questions about it. You get to relate with me personally to where this actually is taking you. But before we start, consider reaching out to one person right now who you think may benefit from joining us in the workshop today. And as always, I encourage you to take notes in a notebook dedicated to these workshops and to anything else in your life that helps you develop relational intelligence. If not a pen and paper, will do just as well, And if you like what you learned today, like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's just at the bottom of the video. Go ahead. So, clicking and unclicking. Let's start with click. Click with a new person romantically. And when you click, it is a fabulous tonic, an absolute natural stimulant. Who needs Adderall in those moments, as one of my patients once said? In the clicking, what happens? Conversations flow, insight jokes develop. Every little touch on the arm, a growing frisson. Perfect evenings lead to soft weekend mornings soaking up each other's glow. Sharing stories over coffee, having sex, sharing each other's music, in discovering new music, having more sex. When we're apart, we're obsessively thinking about when we will meet again. And the new subject of our affection is propelled from the periphery of our lives to the center of our lives. And we begin to organize our time, our thoughts, our plans around someone who just a few days or a few weeks ago we never even knew existed. Everything indicates forward motion, clicking, clicking. And then one day, maybe a few weeks or months in, something begins to feel off. The click isn't clicking. Time stretches between communications. A message is sent and the silence drags, followed by non committal answers. Yes, it'd be nice. We should definitely make plans, but with plans don't actually get made. Growing vagueness, and an altogether thinning of the romantic membrane. Has this ever happened to you? Unclicking happens in life a lot, a lot. But I don't even know if clicking happens more often than unclicking or unclicking more often than clicking. It's just that it lives very, very differently inside of us. And these days, we may seriously partner with 1 to 5 people in our lives, but the number of people that we date is exponentially higher than that. So it's fair to assume that all of us are carrying around a few half started situationships, lost loves, and heartbreaks. In our free choice society, exploring new relationships is a part of life, but so is ending them. This means that dating is a constant cycle of beginnings and endings, and often we're experiencing them simultaneously. So, I'm curious. Tell me in the chat, how many of you have found yourself still healing from a previous relationship while you're in a new one? Or a different take on this question. How many of you have actually tried to get over someone by getting into another relationship? Let me hear from you. Oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah. I'm going to try to get a sense of what you're all telling me here. Yes, 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 yes. So I see a lot of yeses, and so have I. So I understand, In the story that I shared with you in the beginning of today's workshop, what I didn't tell you is how long it took me to heal, or at least to heal enough to be able to open myself back up to dating. After him, for months, I would meet people, but I never really saw them because my eyes were still looking at somebody else. And neither did I really notice when someone was looking at me. I just didn't see. There was like a fog between me and the world around me. I mean, really, when someone says, I don't want to be with you, or when it filters out without any explanation, it really does feel like such a shot to self esteem. And getting back out takes a lot of the rebuilding of that self esteem. So today's exercise is about taking a pause in dating cycle of hope and hurt, hope and hurt. And I've adapted this exercise from a suggestion that I made to my friend Rose in Amsterdam a few years ago. It's creative and it's inspiring as a way to reclaim a sense of our self-worth when we've experienced rejection. And the beauty of it is that it doesn't need to happen in my therapy office. It happens in your lives, with your friends, with your people. So before you decide to get back out on the dating scene, take a pause. Put the dating apps down. Schedule a designated time to come together with friends. Have a real gathering, not just a quick catch up. Tell them what you're going through. There is often shame and often such a wish to hide and not and to think that there's something wrong with you, but it is so important to be able to tell love's agonies, the stories of heartbreak. But more importantly, ask them when they come to the gathering or to the dinner or to the party to share their stories with musics, songs, poetry. I mean, the arts have always helped us express the inexpressible, the aches, the longings, the yearnings, the love that still lives, the flicker, the flame, all of that. I can't think if it's more music or more poetry. I think each of us has the vocabulary, the mode, the modality with which we heal best, you know. But they talk about the heartbreaks, the situationships, the one that got away, the dating that's gone wrong, as well as the stories of dating gone right and the deeper connection that it can lead to. This is what you want your friends to talk about with each other. So we turn what is often a deeply isolating, lonely experience into a communal experience because everyone has gone through it. Remember, I said we date exponentially more people than the ones we have serious relationships with? Well, that's a lot of dating stories that people can share with each other, even if they no longer are in that stage. But everyone remembers, like I just remembered the visceral experience of dating decades way back. You know, we have to remember that because it goes wrong sometimes, it doesn't mean that it will never go right. And our friends can help us remember that. They can also remind us of the love that we deserve. Friends at such breakup events or such moments of deep rejection will share the good things that they see in us when we are having trouble seeing it. See, I was telling you about I couldn't see, and I couldn't see those who saw me. But the more important part is also what we don't see inside ourselves at those moments, and which the people who love us can hold for us. So they can hold up a mirror of the beauties that live inside of us when we are cut off from them because we are too angry at ourselves or too ashamed or too depleted, whatever the reasons. But it is so important. And really, this is where your community is way, not way more powerful, but as powerful as the therapist that accompanies you through this. Because rejection makes everybody feel unwanted to some degree or another, or unloved or unworthy. And this kind of ritual gives back a bit of seeing ourselves in the eyes of the other. And it neutralizes, that's the other piece, it neutralizes the power of the rejector, at least a bit, but I think sometimes more than a bit. It's about taking a personal experience that stings so much and realizing the collective nature of it. I can't emphasize this enough. It's because the temptation is actually to want to isolate and not talk to anybody or maybe confide in one person. And confiding is not just trashing the person who, because sometimes we trash the person while we continue to pine for them. So it's really about what lives inside of us and the experience of self-love in that moment. So if you try this exercise, I want you to end by asking each other, what is the best part of dating? And what is the part of dating that you dread the most? So, what is the best part of dating? And what is the part of dating that you dread the most? The answers to the question helps get excited. You know, the first question, the up, if you want, it's what excites you? Where lies curiosity for you? How do you relate to the possibilities, to the forward thinking? The answers to the second question, the dread, the negative aspect, if you want, helps us think more critically about the less exciting part, but equally realistic parts of dating that we'd like to improve for ourselves. So, I asked this question on social recently and we got a huge amount of answers. So, I'm going to read to you a few because I just felt like when you read the testimony of the collective, it will resonate with each of you. But while I'm reading, I want you to share in the chat what are your favorite and least favorite parts of dating. And start also sending in questions that you'd like me to answer about dating in the Q&A that will follow. So when I asked, what do you most enjoy about the beginning of relationships? Here are what some people said. I love the feeling of everything seeming effortless, the anticipation of the initial acts of love, the discovery of someone else's story, being given the privilege to see and learn from their experiences, and also to feel the desire of another's interest in learning the same from me, the tenderness and intimacy, the new rhythms of togetherness. When someone is totally obsessed with my story, my body, my life, the lovemaking, want to know you, be with you, the constant flow of compliments and contact moments, the enjoyment of little moments of electricity, first looks, first touch, a little aha moments when getting to know what someone is really about. I enjoy discovering parts of myself that the other sees in me. So it's the excitement is what's happening between us, what I notice about you and learn about you, and what I learn about me from what you're seeing in me. It's a triad. What do you most dread? Here are what many people have answered. The most draining is the insecurities and the time that it takes to build trust. What I dread is rejection. I hate when it slows down. Yeah, that's what I was describing when it's like the message is sent and it takes, God knows how long before you get an answer and you begin to wonder, right? The inner questioning starts. Is this the one? Does he deserve me? What am I doing wrong? Didn't I give it enough? What is normal? Etc., etc. And not knowing if your efforts and the feelings will be rewarded with a long-term bond and support, a simmering, an icing. Where are we going? The tiptoeing around flaws, losing the quiet rituals I've developed living alone for so many years. So I had kind of created a world for myself. And now I'm opening up the boundary. I'm opening up the membrane, really, the romantic membrane, and I'm trying to let you in. And that feels extremely vulnerable. When the dark passenger arises, not getting any sleep, dependency. This is dating, people. It's messy, it's complicated, it's infuriating, and it's beautiful and meaningful, and it takes us to extremes that we have never known. So this is dating. I'm going to actually do a real shout out, by the way, because if this is really your topic at this moment, and since you're with me here today, and I assume you are, I recently consulted on a new podcast with exactly this title. This is dating, that lets listeners eavesdrops on curated series of real first dates among real people. This is Dating is made by my dear friend and co-creator, Jessie Baker, the executive producer of both of my podcasts. And I am an entire episode in that series as well. Not I am, I participated. It's actually not about me at all. But seriously, it's the real stories in real time, like the couples therapy of Where Should We Begin, but in the dating situations. It's called This is Dating, and you can listen to it wherever you get your podcasts. So let me get a sense a little bit of what you are telling me here. Are you sharing stories and questions? Oh, how far do I go and where? Okay, so let me get a sense of the questions. Go ahead. What are some of the questions that you bring with you? Exactly me right now. Does it have to do with avoidance anxiety? And it feels unfair to the second. I gave myself time over a year before I got into one. Yeah. The highs and the lows. Best way to get over someone is getting under someone else. I give myself time is not just for anybody. Currently trying the latter. Yes, 7 years between relationships. Is it work? Is it worth asking the person why they lost the spark? You date somebody and they are all into you, and then suddenly, off they go, and you want to find out what changed. And then what are you going to get? You may either get somebody who doesn't want to hurt you, and therefore they're not going to tell you the truth, or they will say something that will be really hurtful. I still want to get back with my ex. I actually am not over it. I realize that this isn't really clicking. And then you're going to take it very personal. I find that conversation really, because the way it's framed, it's like, you seem to like me and suddenly you don't. What changed? So if you're going to ask about the lost spark, it's really, how do you see what's happened between us? Because then it's a between us. It's not just from me to you or you to me. Remember we talked about the triad before? So that to me is a better way to ask the question. But um, it's more, how do you understand it? Not why did you lose it? It's how do you understand the change? What has changed for you? What was the arc for you? So it's less that you are inviting a series of comments about, what's missing, and what's missing, which you will then interpret in you. Or as if you liked me more, or if I was more, then you wouldn't lose that spark. And I don't want to invite questions that invite self-doubt or self-deprecation. So that's my answer to this question. How do I allow myself to feel the disappointments and rejections while also letting go? And this is where you really say it's really painful. It sucks. It's like, oh, uh, there's all kinds of physicalizations when you talk about rejection. No, it's like, and this is the way that person did it, and how dare he do it, or he do it, or they do it, and you go back and forth between anger, resentment, blasphemy, sadness, hurt, cringe, vengeance. It has a panoply of emotions, a total maelstrom, but it's very, very it's like when somebody tells a joke and you laugh, nobody questions why are you laughing when the joke is being told. It's everyone understands this is meant to invite that. Well, when somebody experiences rejection, you go through a whole range of responses, and they are natural, normal responses to that. What you don't want is to stay stuck in them and to repeat them and repeat until they become a second skin. You just say, this is the nature of this kind of experience. It's in the nature of the beast to experience all these things. And while I'm experiencing all of this, this is not my fate. This is not destiny. This is my reaction to something that has just happened to me. It's very different. Don't take a deterministic approach. You take a reaction approach because it is reactive in that moment. And then you also say, this is one person. This is not the definitive story of my life. Remember, we date exponentially in a free will society like this. So we need to be able to understand this loop of highs and lows that often happen simultaneously. That's exactly the question you're asking. How to do both of those things simultaneously. And I have a wound. It hurts when I press on it. I feel it, but I have another side of me that is also open, welcome, inviting, responding, and in the moment, because the other one is no longer just in the moment. And it's that back and forth. It's extremely active in the beginning and very vocal sometimes in the beginning. If you don't want to talk to people or to friends, then you write, you journal, but you put it down, or you compose a song and you sing it and you blast it. But you allow the expression, because that expression is actually very important, or it will start to sit in your body and your body will tighten. And when the next person comes, you won't even notice. But it takes time. And everyone knows the moment at which they're turning. It is grief, it is mourning, it takes time. But there is a very clear instance when you release. That's it. You release and you make space again. Yes. How to deal with ghosting. So first and foremost, I will send you all to the blog on the website on estherperel.com/blog, because we did probably one of the best things we wrote, which was about icing, simmering, and ghosting. And a friend of ours had written a whole chart about what actually happens in the difference between all these three. So ghosting is another word for rejection, instant rejection, kind of the person that disappeared. I just didn't use the word ghosting when this guy just, disappeared, and I couldn't find him in any place where I was always sure to find him. It's the same with social media. I mean, basically, you're looking for someone in the virtual space and they no longer respond, or on phone, on the text. And so it really is a shock, because it sometimes goes from, however, hundreds of messages to nothing in a moment, and you just are there with a black thing in front of you. And it is sometimes like a sharp, sharp, sharp cut. And you sit there and it's like, it's like reality fractures. The ground under your feet, you thought that this leads to this, there was a certain kind of logic at this point, and the whole thing just collapses on the spot. And it becomes a part of the physical experience and the emotional experience. And you do the same as you do when you grieve. The most important thing is that, remember I said the person goes from the periphery to the center, and suddenly that person is given such an enormous amount of power that it's an amazing thing how a virtual stranger of a few weeks before can suddenly kind of own our entire self and collapse it, fracture it. It's that. And you want to hear the choir, Greek chorus behind you of the people who know you before and around and after and will be there, that make you feel like this is intensely painful, but this person doesn't own my sense of self. And my sense of self, bolstered by the support of the people who care and love for me, is going to help me swallow this without falling apart, but with an acute sense of the pain around it. My dear friend and colleague Guy Winch did a phenomenal TED Talk on heartbreak and wrote the book also, How to Mend the Broken Heart. And one of the things that he constantly highlights in those moments is to basically make a list very quickly of what you appreciated there, what was the excitement, and what were the other things that were existing at the same time, so that you don't constantly just find yourself pining and longing for this beautiful thing that is no more. But ghosting is a modern day phenomenon with the new additional details, important details, to a fundamental human experience of rejection and abandonment on the spot, done with the technologies of today, which often invite a death by 1,000 cuts. Because you can continue to see them, because you can track them on social, because you can stalk them, because there's a whole way to find it. It's like you can be ghosted without being fully ghosted. Yes, do I need to play it cool when I can actually tell the person who I know likes me how I feel? I hate game playing and waiting for the text. I mean, you can play it a little bit cool. Depends. All of these questions, by the way, have a context. This is not a totalistic universal answer here. If you know someone likes you and you like them too, why hold back? Why? Because they are feeling some of the same things as you. Why not say, this was a wonderful time I spent with you. I'd love for us to see each other again. I had a wonderful time. Or send something that made you think of them. Or do a nice gesture. Or, bring them the thing that they told you is their favorite drink, or whatever it is. It's like, you don't have to, you can show, you can say, you can do it in gestures, with objects, with activities. There's multiple ways to say to someone, I too find myself drawn here, without having to make a declaration. This doesn't have to be printed on anything. But as a whole, if people like each other, there is nothing more beautiful than the trepidatious way in which we slowly acknowledge this to each other. I'm feeling something. I'm afraid I feel that thing. I'm wondering, is this really the thing I think it is? And you have this whole kind of touch and go kind of thing. And it's so fragile and so precious and so vulnerable and so tender. And it can be really beautiful and scary. And that is what nascent love is about. And if you don't yet think it's about love, it's about being drawn, it's about falling in love, it's being attracted, infatuated. You can use all the other words that precede it, I'm actually going to do a presentation today with the fantastic poet David White, who has written some of the most amazing love poems and poems about eroticism. And he captures that very beautifully. Pick one of his poems and just read it. You can say, the poets have said it much better than me. But the idea that you can, of course, we want to protect ourselves. And then we don't really want to say it. But there is also a way of protecting ourselves by actually feeling that or saying that what I feel is legitimate and beautiful, and I'm proud of it, and I deserve it. And that too is a form of protection. Maybe we don't call it protection, so I call it sovereignty. I call it, appearing and like showing up, radiance. But it is protective too. Protection is not just something you do to ward off dangers. Protection is also something you do when you nurture yourself. And admitting to nascent feelings inside of us is a form of self-nurturing. Yes. How do you respond to someone who says he likes you, says you're amazing, has feelings for you, but isn't ready and wants to be friends? You listen to them, huh? First of all, you listen to them. And then you decide, if you like them enough to want to be patient, to be curious, to let it unfold. You don't really know why they say they're not ready. What does that mean, I'm not ready? Does that mean I'm not sure? Does that mean I have other ideas in mind? Or does that mean I've just come out of a long story? So you ask, what does not ready mean in your vocabulary? Because it's a formula and it can mean a bunch of different things. And what they're saying is, and then you're saying to them, actually, is all the nice things that you say a way of wanting me to be patient? Ask them, what do they expect from you? Do they just want you not to put pressure, take it slow, give them the time that it takes for them? Or do you think they just want you to be in a waiting pattern? So what do you do? For me, in this case, you do ask questions. You just say, you say all these nice things, and you say you want to be friends. Is it because that's where you see yourself, where it leans to for you? And then it from the way, you don't have to be blatant about it as well, but sometimes you know it from the way they may touch you or hold your hand or look in your eyes or avert your gaze, actually. If they stay 30 seconds, something is happening. If they say 3 seconds, something else is happening, and if they say it, the main thing you want to know is it a matter of, let me grow into this, or is it really that they say, this is what I experience vis-a-vis you. It's in this department, the friendship department. It's not in the falling in love department. That's the distinction you want to make. And it takes time to find out. So you have your question, you go with that question as you meet him or her or them, and then you get cues. You get cues. You see what they write, what they say, how they respond, how they relate, and slowly you get a sense, if this, how they open up, what they tell you about their stories of their life. Be a bit of an investigator, because the other thing is sometimes we don't know ourselves. We just have a sense, but we don't really know. And so this unknown, uncertainty, liminality is a property of dating and beginning relationships. Yes. Are there more? How to do a better job of receiving. When someone starts to give to me attention, time, gifts too early, I feel skeptical. Why can't I give them the benefit of the doubt? But you feel skeptical about what? You don't trust them? You think that if you take, suddenly it's going to be taken away back from you, and you're trying to be vigilant and protect yourself? Are you repeating a script that is familiar to you from your own childhood or from your own previous relationships, where you felt that you opened up and then the person took a part of you with them and you are left bereft? Is it because you suddenly you begin to look down on them? That's a whole other way to react, because you feel like, you don't even know me and you like me already, which is like, the club that you don't want to belong to, kind of thing. So what is the skepticism? That is the word here. Are we talking about the trust, the fear of being hurt? Are we talking about the lack of self-love And therefore, how can you love me so soon and so easily? It's never been so easy for me. Why is it so easy for you, kind of thing? And that's the first orientation. Then once you have answered that, the next thing is very different. And then the other thing is you make it a practice. This is a conversation you have with yourself. Today I'm going to try to receive something, whatever you decide to choose. And you just say, I'm going to observe myself. What is it that I do? I make it look like it's nothing. I become very tenuous about it. I test him or her or them. Is there a gender implied in this story? No. I test to see if I say no, if I react a certain way, will you come back with more, or will you suddenly, there's a whole thing going on here around receiving is vulnerable, it's opening up, it's trusting, it's doubting that the other person will be with us and will stay, or it's questioning why they want us so soon, or it's protecting us from the hazards of receiving. But receiving is one of the most important verbs. In the big, to me, all relationships are like a language that are organized around a set of key verbs, that make the kind of foundational grammar. And one of these verbs is receiving. Another one is giving, sharing, asking, playing, imagining, wanting, refusing. These are some of the essential verbs of relationships, and be it emotionally or sexually for that matter. Receiving is one of the most important ones, because the other thing you need to know is that when you receive, it's a form of giving to the person who is giving. It gives meaning and value to the person who is giving to you. It's not just for you. Receiving is a dialogical experience. So, with that said, I am going to thank you for all your questions and for joining me today. And I hope that you'll join me again next month for Letters from Esther Live. For those of you who have Where Should We Begin? Pick one of those cards about what love has taught you, or about the worst date you've been on, or about one of the most important lessons about love that you have experienced. There are some incredible cards that will help you tell amazing stories to each other that you can do on your first dates. So follow along and sign up to my newsletter if you haven't already at estherperel.com/blog, or follow me at Esther Perel Official on social media. And I will see you here, same time in a month. Goodbye, everyone.